It happened over dinner, not the kind where people laugh over glasses of wine or reminisce about childhood memories, but the kind where the food turns cold on untouched plates, where shadows feel longer than usual, and every word carries the weight of an unspoken war. That night, Camille Winters sat at the same mahogany dining table where her grandmother once taught her to use fine silverware. But now it was a battlefield. Amber, her younger sister, always dressed like a headline and talking like she owned every room, leaned forward with a half smile Camille had seen before every disaster. "You have 3 days to vacate the house," Amber said, voice syrupy, like a verdict disguised as hospitality. Camille blinked, unsure if she had misheard. She hadn't. Her parents, once the anchors of her world, sat frozen in a silence that was louder than any scream. Their eyes avoided hers, fixed on the tablecloth or the untouched apple pie her mother had baked. Her father, usually the first to object to any family unfairness, said nothing. Her mother's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, but no words of protest came. The manila envelope Amber slid across the table made a soft sound. But for Camille, it was a gunshot. It held the revised will. Their grandmother, Eleanor, the only person who ever truly saw her for who she was, had, according to this document, left everything to Amber. The house, the inheritance, everything. The same grandmother who once whispered, "You're the heart of this family," had supposedly left her with nothing. Camille was still reeling from losing her job 3 weeks earlier. Corporate restructuring, they called it, but she had returned home with hope, not humiliation. Her parents had welcomed her back with lasagna and open arms, promising she could stay as long as you need. That promise now lay in shards at her feet. Amber's voice echoed in her mind like glass breaking. The cruelty wasn't new. Amber had always found ways to diminish her. But this was orchestrated, pre-planned, a betrayal not just from a sibling, but from an entire family that once swore it would never abandon her. She barely remembered how she left the table. Her body moved without direction, stumbling up the stairs to the bedroom that still smelled faintly of childhood dreams and old books. The door closed behind her like a prison gate. Camille collapsed against it, the tears coming like a flood after a long drought. Her mind raced. What had she missed? What had they done? What had they planned behind her back while she went on job interviews? Hopeful, trusting, that night, sleep didn't come. Instead, memories haunted her. Grandma Eleanor teaching her how to tend roses. Her dad cheering at her high school debate final. Her mom brushing her hair after a nightmare. Were all those moments lies? Or had something broken inside them so deeply that they now saw her as disposable? At 3, panic struck. She checked her bank account. $1, $2.07, $30. Not enough for rent. Not in Greenwich. Not enough for storage. Not enough to survive. She tried to think rationally. Who could she stay with? Who might help? But 6 years of burying herself in work had thinned her social circle to a handful of colleagues and a single friend still in Connecticut. She called Nancy, not expecting an answer. But Nancy picked up. She didn't hesitate. "My couch is yours." It was a lifeline. But Camille knew it wasn't enough. She needed justice, not pity. A chance call from an elderly voice. Mildred, her grandmother's garden club friend, ignited the first flame of resistance. Mildred told her what Camille's gut had been screaming. Eleanor wanted the house to go to Camille, not Amber, not the golden girl with debts and a failing marriage. The will had changed, but not Grandma's heart, and that meant something was wrong. Very wrong. Camille knew then. This wasn't about losing a house. It was about being erased. The next morning, Camille didn't cry. She didn't scream. She packed, not out of surrender, but as a strategy. As she sorted through old notebooks and half-packed boxes, she unearthed a drawer full of letters, everyone written in Grandma Eleanor's spidery script. Each line was a balm, a reminder of love that had been real, deep, and undivided. The words whispered strength into her bones. You are not invisible. You are not alone. But now, she needed more than sentiment. She needed proof. Mildred agreed to meet her the next day at the Bluebird Cafe, a quaint corner place that still smelled of cinnamon and memory. As Camille stepped inside, the familiar scent wrapped around her like an embrace. Mildred looked smaller than Camille remembered, age having quietly trimmed her edges, but her eyes were fierce, sharp with clarity, She told me herself, Mildred said over black coffee, her voice steady despite the tremble in her hands. 2 months before she died, Eleanor sat at this very table and said she updated her will to give you the house. She said it belonged to you, not because of worth, but because of love. Camille clutched her cup so tightly her knuckles whitened. But that's not what the will says now. That's because someone changed it. Mildred's gaze didn't waver, and not someone with good intentions. The name Bradford Thornton came next. Smooth talking, expensive suits. Luxury cars, not the kind of lawyer Eleanor would have chosen. Mildred had never liked him, and neither had the rest of the garden club women. He'd appeared out of nowhere, just as Eleanor was on heavy pain medication, and quickly replaced her lifelong attorney. When Camille dug further, she found connections that turned her stomach. Bradford had been Harrison's lawyer, Amber's husband, for years. Photos of them on yachts, business events, even vacations, and the dates aligned perfectly with Eleanor's last weeks. Back at the house, Camille waited until her parents left, then entered her father's study. The password was easy, her mother's birthday, same as always. What she found shredded whatever illusions remained. Dozens of emails between her father, Amber, and Bradford about the revised will, about managing Camille's expectations. And one message that made her physically recoil. Amber had written, "Once everything's transferred, we'll honor our agreement. Just keep her in the dark until it's too late." In another folder labeled Eleanor Medical. The truth was worse. Doctor's notes confirmed Eleanor was mentally impaired due to medication. Her cognitive state impaired when the new will had been signed. The very time Amber and Harrison had swooped in, citing urgent paperwork and promising to help. But that wasn't all. A financial statement buried deep in her dad's files revealed the true motive. Harrison and Amber were drowning in debt. Their real estate ventures were collapsing. They needed collateral fast. And Eleanor's home, the one built on generations of love, had become their solution. The betrayal was complete. Camille sat there, surrounded by lies and paperwork. When the front door opened earlier than expected, her parents were home. Her mother's face turned ghost white when she saw the computer screen. Her father's voice shook as he demanded an explanation. "You don't understand," he began. "No." Camille interrupted, her voice cold and steady. "You don't understand. You sold me out. You sold your own daughter to secure your comfort." Her mother sobbed quietly. Her father folded into his chair like the weight of truth had finally caught up with him. But Camille wasn't done. "You all lied to me. While I was grieving, while I was trying to find a way forward, you were conspiring behind my back. And for what? A house. A piece of paper. You didn't just betray me. You betrayed Grandma." They had no words, only silence and guilt. Camille didn't sleep that night. Sleep was for people whose world hadn't just collapsed. For those who didn't discover that their family had treated them as expendable. She stared at the ceiling in the same childhood bedroom where dreams once grew wild. Now, only a searing clarity remained. They weren't going to stop her. If justice was a fire, then she would be the match. At dawn, she packed her laptop, a folder of printed emails, and a flash drive, then headed to a legal aid clinic in Stamford. The office sat above a dry cleaner, the hallway filled with the low hum of desperation. Everyone there was clinging to hope like it was the last life raft. She waited nearly 2 hours before being ushered into a cramped room with peeling paint and tired chairs. That's where she met Monica Rodriguez. Monica was in her mid-40s, her glasses too big for her face, and her demeanor pure steel. Camille laid everything out, every receipt of betrayal, every buried truth. Monica listened without interruption, her expression growing more grim with each passing document. "If what you're telling me holds up," she said, "finally, this is more than a family dispute. It's potential elder abuse, fraud, and undue influence." "Can you represent me?" Camille asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Not directly," Monica replied, "but I believe your case is strong enough to interest a contingency attorney, one who gets paid only if you win. I'll draft a formal contest letter. Once you serve it, no transfer of property can occur until the court decides." Monica gave Camille more than just legal tools. She gave her strategy, insight, and, most importantly, belief. She reminded her to document everything, especially now that confrontation was inevitable. Armed with the contest letter, Camille began contacting witnesses. Lawrence Phillips, Grandma's original attorney was shocked to learn he'd been replaced. She never said anything about changing her will. He told Camille, in fact, she emphasized multiple times that the house was yours. Mildred did more than talk. She rallied 3 other garden club friends, all of whom confirmed Eleanor's intentions. One had even saved a birthday card from Eleanor, where she'd written, "Can't wait to see the garden in bloom again next year. I'm so glad it will always be in Camille's hands." Sunday night arrived. The deadline Amber had given, but Camille had her own deadline now, and she wasn't backing down. When she returned home, her parents' car was gone, but Amber's SUV was parked in the driveway, polished like armor inside. Amber and Harrison were lounging in the living room, flipping through paint samples like royalty choosing renovations. Amber didn't even look up. "We expected you to be gone by now," she said. "Movers are coming in the morning. Change of plans," Camille said, placing the folder of evidence on the coffee table like it was a grenade. "We're having a family meeting." Amber rolled her eyes, but Harrison's posture stiffened. He sensed it before she did. This wasn't just another emotional outburst. It was war. 20 minutes later, their parents returned to a storm they never anticipated. Camille stood before all of them, calm, measured, precise. She laid it out with the efficiency of a prosecutor. The medical records proving Eleanor's diminished capacity, the emails exposing the timeline of the betrayal, the financial documents revealing Amber and Harrison's desperation, and the testimonies from witnesses. Every word struck like a scalpel. Harrison tried to interrupt, but Camille silenced him with a single glance. "This isn't hearsay," she said. "This is a formal will contest. And if you push me, I'll bring this to the district attorney as a criminal matter." Amber's mask cracked first. The cool detachment vanished. "You don't know what you're doing," she hissed. "You're going to destroy the entire family." "No," Camille replied quietly. "You already did." The room fell into an oppressive silence. Amber's eyes darted from face to face, searching for someone, anyone, to rescue her. Harrison sat rigid, his jaw clenched so tight a muscle throbbed near his temple. Camille remained standing, her presence unshakable, while her parents sat frozen, as if watching their whole world collapse in real time. "You have no idea what this means," Amber said, voice trembling now, teetering between anger and fear. "We need this house. Without it, we'll lose everything." "You mean the business you've been bleeding dry for the last 2 years?" Camille asked, her voice sharp, but steady. "The one Grandma's house was supposed to bail out." Harrison stood suddenly. "We made choices," he said, his tone too smooth, too controlled. "Business is complicated. We thought this was the best path forward. You wouldn't understand." "I understand manipulation," Camille shot back. "I understand exploiting a dying woman to secure assets. I understand betrayal." Her father spoke then, voice rough like gravel. "Camille, maybe it's time to let this go. A legal battle." "Stop!" Camille interrupted. "You don't get to talk to me about what's reasonable. You helped Amber do this. You both did." Her mother wept silently, crumbling into herself, while her father stared at the floor, ashamed but still unwilling to fight. Camille turned to Amber again. "You said I always had everything handed to me. Didn't you? That Grandma favored me. But none of that was true, was it? You just hated that I never needed to perform for her, that she loved me without conditions." Amber's face twisted. "You think this is about love? This is about survival." "No," Camille said, her voice low and cutting. "This is about greed. And I have proof that you and Harrison plotted this with your lawyer friend Bradford. And if you push me, I'll make that recording public." Harrison's composure cracked. "Recording," he echoed, panic slicing through his polished demeanor. "What recording?" Camille pulled a small voice recorder from her pocket and placed it on the table. Watching their faces turn pale, Bradford said a lot of interesting things about how he got Eleanor to sign during her pain medication cycles. "Do you really want me to play it?" She hadn't spoken to Bradford. The recorder was empty, but bluffing had always been Amber's game. Camille had learned from the best. Amber slumped into the sofa like the air had been knocked out of her. "You lied," she whispered. "No," Camille said. "I adapted." The doorbell rang. It was Nancy, standing with quiet strength behind Camille. "Just thought I'd stop by," she said, eyes flicking to Amber and Harrison. "Want me to call a lawyer now or later?" "No need," Camille replied. "I think they've heard enough." Amber looked smaller now, fragile even, Her designer blouse hung loose on her suddenly frail frame. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," she murmured. "You mean you didn't think I'd fight back?" Camille asked. "Grandma taught me better." Her father finally raised his eyes. "Camille, what happens now?" She looked around at all of them. The people who'd once been her home. "Now," she said, "now we go to court, and every lie you told gets dragged into the light." The days that followed moved like a slow-motion avalanche. Quiet, inevitable, devastating. Camille filed the formal contest of the will through a contingency attorney Monica had connected her with. The moment it hit the probate court's docket, a restraining order was issued. No property transfers, no renovations, and no financial maneuvers involving the estate until the matter was resolved. Amber's movers were turned away at the driveway. Bradford Thornton, facing mounting pressure and an official complaint with the Bar Association, folded faster than anyone expected. In a sworn affidavit, he confessed that he had been brought in by Harrison under unusual and time-sensitive circumstances and had drawn up the new will during one of Eleanor's medicated episodes. The language was clinical, sanitized, but Camille read between the lines. He had knowingly exploited Eleanor's weakened state to alter her final wishes. This revelation cracked everything open. Suddenly, Amber's web of lies began unraveling in public. Court documents became accessible to reporters sniffing around for scandal in the upscale neighborhoods of Greenwich. Harrison's failing real estate ventures and their lavish overspending were no longer private embarrassments. They were headlines. A reputation they'd spent years curating was obliterated in days. And yet, Camille didn't feel triumphant. Not exactly. Winning had never been the point. Reclaiming the truth. Her grandmother's truth was... But the emotional fallout didn't spare her. Her mother called daily, messages filled with tears and regrets, asking to talk. Her father sent a letter instead, handwritten, trying to explain his weakness as fear, not malice. Camille read it once and placed it in a drawer, not because she forgave him, but because some wounds needed time to stop bleeding before they could be cleaned. Amber disappeared from public view. Harrison filed for bankruptcy. Their home, once the setting of their curated lifestyle, went up for sale. Camille received no apology, no acknowledgement from either of them, and she stopped expecting one. Some people are too deeply entangled in their own self-image to see the wreckage they've caused. But something unexpected bloomed in the silence. A job offer. One of Camille's former clients from Morgan Stanley had followed her case in the local papers. He reached out, not out of pity, but because he saw something in how she handled the crisis. Dignity, focus, fire. The new position was at a boutique firm specializing in ethical wealth advising. And though the salary wasn't what she used to earn, it came with something far more important. Purpose. She took the job. She took her life back. The house, after months of legal proceedings, was officially declared hers. The previous will was reinstated. Amber received only her portion of Eleanor's investment portfolio. No house, no title, no collateral. Her parents were allotted small personal effects and no say in the estate's future. The victory felt strangely quiet. There were no cheers, no applause. Just Camille alone in the garden Eleanor once loved. Her hands brushing against the last blooms of summer. That's where Nancy found her, bringing wine and laughter and the warmth Camille had missed. They sat on the back porch, talking not about what had been lost, but about what was next. "You stood your ground," Nancy said. "You didn't just win the house. You won yourself." Camille didn't reply at first. She just looked up at the fading sky, the way the colors bled softly into each other, like healing. I kept hearing her voice, she finally said. Even when no one else stood with me, I knew she would have. And then, as if fate had a final gift to offer, Nancy reached into her bag and handed Camille a yellowed envelope. "Found this tucked inside one of Eleanor's old books in your study. Jane Eyre, I think." Camille opened it carefully, hands trembling. Inside was a letter written in shaky, familiar script. "My dearest Camille, if you're reading this, then things have unfolded as I feared." Camille read the letter slowly, her breath catching on nearly every word. Her grandmother's handwriting, once strong and fluid, had wavered near the end, but the message was unwavering. "You are stronger than you know. My darling, I've watched you weather storms others would drown in. I have done what I could to protect you. But if this reaches your hands, it means someone tried to undo those protections. Her vision blurred with tears. I've also made additional arrangements. The letter continued. A separate account has been established in your name at Greenwich National Bank. Walter Jenkins is the only one who knows about it. This money is yours and yours alone. Should things go awry, do not let your spirit be broken. Let your truth rise like the tide. You are my legacy, Camille, not the house, not the garden. A bank card was tucked into the envelope, along with a separate document. Camille stared at the account balance. 524, and for a moment, the room spun. All this time, she'd been fighting tooth and nail for the house, not knowing that her grandmother had quietly ensured she'd be safe no matter what happened. It wasn't just about inheritance. It was a test. Eleanor had trusted Camille to stand firm, to fight, and had built a safety net in case the storm came. Camille closed the letter and pressed it to her chest. Her grandmother had seen the war coming and believed in her enough to let her fight it. But she also hadn't left her defenseless. It was both a blessing and a burden, and Camille felt the weight of it settle into her bones. That night, she didn't cry. She planned. By morning, she had a blueprint in hand, not for renovations, not for victory laps, but for something better. Camille used part of the inheritance to create the Eleanor Foundation, a transitional housing initiative for women who, like her, had been displaced by betrayal, manipulation, or collapse. She would convert the east wing of the house into private suites, offering a temporary sanctuary and support services, legal aid, therapy referrals, job resources. The house would no longer be a shrine to loss. It would be a place of rebirth. When she announced it at a small gathering weeks later, surrounded by Nancy, her colleagues from the new firm, neighbors, and even Mildred, there was silence, followed by tears, then applause. Her parents were there too, sitting near the back. Her mother clutched a tissue. Her father never took his eyes off the floor. Camille acknowledged them, but didn't seek their approval. This house was almost stolen through deceit, she said, but today, it becomes something more powerful than ownership. It becomes a haven for every woman who's ever been pushed out of a family, a life, or a home. My grandmother believed in resilience and in justice. I hope she's proud. Later that evening, as golden light streamed through the newly renovated sunroom, Camille stood by the window, a glass of wine in her hand. Her parents approached quietly. Her father cleared his throat. He started, then stopped. We were wrong. Her mother nodded, eyes glassy. Thank you for letting us be here. I didn't do it for you, Camille said, gently but firmly. I did it for her, and for every woman who's been told to sit down and stay quiet. They didn't argue. They didn't excuse. And for once, they listened. Before they left, her mother hesitated. About Amber, Camille held up a hand. Tell her the roses are blooming again. Maybe she'd like to see them. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was an open door. That night, Camille sat alone in the garden, the same garden Eleanor had once taught her to tend. The blooms swayed gently in the breeze, and in their motion, she felt something unshakable. She wasn't a victim anymore. She wasn't a cast-off or an afterthought. She was the storm, the roots, the survivor. The vengeance wasn't loud. It was quiet, exacting, it was within. Thank you for watching this story on Vengeance Within. If this journey moved you, inspired you, or reminded you of your own strength in the face of betrayal, please subscribe and share this with someone who needs it.